Well, hello dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 3, Part 1, Nature of Demand. The main idea behind this economics lesson is the law of demand is used to explain the inverse relationship between price and the amount of a good or service consumers demand. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you'll be able to describe how demand differs from the quantity demanded, explain what the law of demand states, and explain what demand schedules and demand curves illustrate. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. You have wanted or demanded many things in your life. Everyone has. In economic terms, however, the concept of demand means more than simply wanting something. Consider Linda's situation. Suppose that she has been saving to buy a new car ever since she graduated and started her job a few years ago. Linda wants a sports car that has a good safety record and a reputation for needing few repairs. After shopping around, Linda realizes that the cost of a new sports car is beyond her budget. At this point, she cannot afford the car she wants. Instead, she will have to look for a used sports car, buy a less expensive car, or wait until she can afford her first choice in cars. At this particular time, Linda cannot add to the demand for new sports cars. This does not mean that she might not be part of that demand at some time in the future, if and when she can afford such a car. As you can see from Linda's example, demand in economic terms is the amount of a good or service that a consumer is willing and able to buy at various possible prices during a given time period. Quantity demanded is a slightly different concept that describes the amount of a good or service that a consumer is willing and able to buy at each particular price during a given time period. This definition of demand contains two important conditions. First, the consumer must be willing and able to buy the good or service. In other words, the person must not only want the product, but also have the means to pay for it. Linda did not meet this condition because she could not afford the car she wanted. Second, demand for the product must be examined for a specific time period, a day, a week, a month, a year, or some other definite period. The time period under study must be specific because various factors that change over time can affect the demand for a product. Linda's situation illustrates a basic economic principle. In a free market system, price is the main variable affecting demand. Specifically, there is an inverse or opposite relationship between price and the quantity demanded. This relationship is described by the law of demand, which states that an increase in a good's price causes a decrease in the quantity demanded, and that a decrease in price causes an increase in the quantity demanded. Suppose that you wanted to buy a CD player. You expect to buy a CD player for about $200, and you have saved that amount. One Saturday, you go to the Avalon Electronics store. When you arrive at the store, you discover that the price of CD players has increased from $200 to $300. You are now able to pay $300 for a CD player because you have not saved that much money. Even if you were able to pay the higher price, you might not be willing to do so. Similarly, some other consumers might also be unwilling or unable to buy CD players at the higher price. In other words, the price increase will lead to a decrease in the quantity demanded. In contrast, if the price for CD players falls to $100, the quantity demanded will increase as consumers are willing and able to buy more CD players. Three economic concepts help explain the law of demand: the income effect, the substitution effect, and diminishing marginal utility. Together, these concepts account for the inverse effect that changes in price have on the quantity demanded. The amount of money or income that people have available to spend on goods and services is called their purchasing power. As a consumer's purchasing power increases, his or her demand for goods and services also tends to increase. On the other hand, a decrease in a consumer's purchasing power tends to decrease his or her demand. Any increase or decrease in consumers' purchasing power caused by a change in price is called the income effect. For example, if a store lowers the price of its CDs from $15 to $10, a consumer can buy more CDs with the same amount of income. A person spending $30 can buy 3 CDs at the new price of $10, but could have purchased only 2 CDs at the previous price of $15. The lower price thus increases the consumer's purchasing power and increases the quantity of CDs demanded from 2 to 3. The income effect also exists when the price of a product rises and an individual can buy less of the product with the same amount of income. If the price of CDs jumps to $18, a consumer with $30 to spend does not have enough money to buy more than 1 CD. The consumer's purchasing power has decreased, resulting in a decrease in the quantity of CDs demanded from 2 to 1. In general, the income effect has a strong and predictable influence on the quantity demanded. Keep in mind, however, that the income effect does not always come into play. Although the price of CDs falls from $15 to $10, some people still may want only the 2 CDs they originally intended to buy at the higher price. Even though consumers' increased purchasing power has made them able to buy 3 CDs at the new price, they might not be willing to do so. Likewise, people who really want these 2 CDs may be willing and able to buy them, even if the price rises to $18. Although consumers' purchasing power has decreased, the quantity demanded would remain at 2 CDs instead of falling to 1 or none. The substitution effect describes the tendency of consumers to substitute a similar, lower-priced product for another product that is relatively more expensive. This effect helps explain the relationship between price and the quantity demanded. For example, when the price of steak increases, many consumers reduce the quantity of beef demanded and buy more chicken, a lower-price substitute. The substitution effect helps explain why a higher price for beef causes a decrease in the quantity of beef demanded. Like the income effect, the substitution effect sometimes does not apply. If an essential good or service has no readily available substitutes, a rise in price may not lower the quantity demanded. Milk, for example, does not have a lower-priced readily available substitute. Thus, a rise in the price of milk likely will not cause consumers to switch to a substitute. Most people will consume about the same amount of milk in spite of the higher price. The third concept involved in explaining the law of demand is based on utility. As noted in Lesson 1, utility describes the usefulness of a product, or the amount of satisfaction that an individual receives from consuming a product. A product's overall utility typically increases as more of the product is consumed. However, as more units of a product are consumed, the satisfaction received from consuming each additional unit declines. Economists call this diminishing marginal utility, because the marginal or additional utility of each unit consumed diminishes or lessens with each unit. Suppose that you and your friends play basketball on a Saturday morning. After the game, you all have lunch at the restaurant with the best tacos in town. The first taco is well worth the $1 it costs. In fact, you are so hungry, you would have paid $1.50 for it. The second taco also is worth at least $1 to you. As you consider eating a third taco, however, you realize that you are starting to get full. You are still a little hungry, but not as hungry as you were when you started eating the first and second tacos. The third taco is not worth $1 to you. The restaurant is running a special, however. If you order 2 tacos, a third one is half price. At the lower price of 50 cents, the third taco is worth the cost to you. You eat the third taco and are full. Although the total utility of eating the tacos has increased, the marginal utility has decreased with each taco consumed. What about a fourth taco? You couldn't eat anything more, so you certainly would not be willing to pay $1 or even 50 cents for a fourth taco. Even if this taco were free, you might not order it. Diminishing marginal utility helps explain why the demand for a product is not limitless. At some point, consumers cannot use any more of a product. There is a limit to the product's utility to consumers, and thus a limit to consumers' demand. One useful way to show the relationship between the price of a good or service and the quantity that consumers demand is a demand schedule. This schedule lists the quantity of goods that consumers are willing and able to buy at a series of possible prices. A demand schedule allows you to see the intersection of price and demand in a simple table format. Suppose that Ellen, a jewelry store owner, wants to know how many right-on-time watches she can sell at various prices during a 1-month period. Ellen may develop a demand schedule that indicates the quantity of watches demanded at several prices so that she can determine and charge her customers the most profitable price for the watch. An example of a demand schedule appears here. The schedule lists the quantity of watches demanded during the month at several possible prices. You can see that as prices increase from $100 to $600, the quantity demanded decreases. When the price is $100, the quantity of watches demanded is 5,000. When the price is $600 or higher, consumers do not buy any watches. Demand curves are another way to show the relationship between the price of a product and the quantity demanded. A demand curve plots this information on a graph. Each point plotted on the graph represents a specific combination of price and quantity demanded. The curve slopes downward, reflecting the greater quantity that consumers will buy at lower prices. Why might a business owner plot a demand curve rather than simply referring to a demand schedule? A demand curve can show at a glance the rate of change at each price. For example, demand curve D1 plots all of the possible combinations of prices and quantities demanded during a 1-month period for car stereos listed in the demand schedule on the left. The quantities that consumers might purchase appear along the horizontal axis at the bottom of the graph, increasing from left to right. The possible prices of the stereos appear along the vertical axis at the left side of the graph, increasing from bottom to top. In some cases, the demand curve will appear to be straight, as each change in price results in the same change in the quantity of the product demanded. Other demand curves, such as the one shown here, may reflect greater changes in the quantity of a product demanded at some prices than others, and therefore will have a more curved appearance. So that's the way it is with Lesson 3, Part 1, Nature of Demand. At this point, you should know that demand is the quantity of a good or service that a consumer is willing and able to buy at various prices during a given time period. The income effect, substitution effect, and diminishing marginal utility each explain the law of demand, and demand schedules and demand curves illustrate how changes in price affect quantity demanded for a specific period of time. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of economics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons.